Hi, my name is Jonna and I play football for Chelsea FC and for the Swedish national team. And you are listening to the Blue Day podcast.
Welcome back, my friends, to the podcast that never ends. We're so glad you could attend. Come inside, come inside. Yes, this is the Blue Day podcast, and for Chelsea fans everywhere, every day is a blue day. I am your host, the creator, the happy one, the man with a face for podcasting, Keith Lawrence, and joining me back this week is a man who is still remembered by Chelsea supporters, especially in the shed end. It's Steve Wicks. Steve, how are we?
We're all right, Keith. Very happy about yesterday. That was always the big game. Chelsea-Tottenham was always our sort of biggest game, really. And it's so nice to see Chelsea win. And win well.
Win well. We missed our first choice goalkeeper, which a lot of people were shocked about when the team's news came in. But then when Tuchel explained, he spoke about how Mendy picked up an injury against Zenit midweek. And it was a bit of a sort of quite a bad collision between him and the centre forward in the later stages of that game. So, yes, keep him fresh, put Kepa in. I was expecting Spurs to look at that and maybe go, right, that's one weakness we can exploit. And they didn't do it. And Kepa looked quite assured.
No. Yeah, I'm pleased for him. We've spoken about him before. He's being rebuilt. And it's very important that he went in clean sheet, no mistakes. And it's a step, he can't overnight become a bad goalkeeper. We pay fortunes for him. And it's our job to try and, make him great again. And that was a big step.
He does look a different goalkeeper from when he was the number one. And whether or not it's a psychological issue with him, whether it was the fact that he came in with so much money and then he made one mistake and it played on him, or whether or not he didn't feel loved by the previous coach. Under Tuchel, he obviously understands that Mendy's come in and Mendy's a better overall keeper, although Kepa has been told he's a better penalty saver by Tuchel. But he looks, when he has come in, he looks a different Kepa to what he was when we first brought him in.
Yeah, I think, I think there's a few players that are looking different and looking better since the new managers come in. We spoke about Christensen. He now looks one hell of a player. The goalkeeper, Alonso, he was on his way out. And the manager's done a fantastic job, and that's great for us because I thought, Spurs had 2 or 3 injuries on Saturday, and it proved that their squad is nowhere near good enough. But one thing's for sure is our squad is absolutely full of class and good players, and that's the difference between a Tottenham and a Chelsea at the moment. Strength in depth.
We did discuss this on a previous episode, I know, and I know I've even mentioned it to certain people at the ground so far this season. This squad, I wouldn't say quality-wise is the same as, but we haven't had an overall squad depth like this since 04, 05, 06, whereby you could probably miss 1 or 2 star names, but have 2 names come in, ready-made replacements that are equally as good. When, say, for example, Lampard would be subbed, for example, or Essien would be rested, you'd have players come in like a Ballack, a Makalele, a Yuri Yarashik come in. and they would still be decent players. You know, John Terry might be out for 2 to 3 games, but you'd have Gallas or Carvalho come in as replacements. I see that in this squad, whereby Pulisic, a couple of years ago, he would be out injured. We'd miss that spark. We haven't missed him when he's been injured. Hudson-Odoi a few years ago was an important player. Partly still is, but we don't miss him as much as probably what we have done a couple of years ago. And I think that tells the story going forward, especially when we talk about winning trophies, Premier League or Champions League. We discussed it, the chances of us actually retaining the Champions League. And I personally think we've got a good chance to do that, purely based on the squad, and hopefully see what happens with qualification, see who we get in the knockout stages. Based on what I've seen from other teams, comparing their squad size to ours and their depth quality to ours, there's no reason why we can't win the Champions League again.
No, I agree, Keith. I in fact, we spoke about this earlier. You know, this on paper is an easier one to win than years gone by because Real Madrid and Barcelona aren't up there anymore. They've had to slash their squads. They've had to sell players, and that's unheard of. And so you look then at PSG, Bayern Munich, and of course the boys from the same country as us, Man United, Man City, you know, Liverpool. They could be our biggest rivals in that. We could again, and I don't think we'd be far off it, have an all English Champions League Cup final.
Yes, that could very well happen.
But I don't think we fear the Spanish teams anymore. Like in the past, we always used to think, oh, go Barcelona, or oh no, Real Madrid. They haven't got quite that fear factor anymore. And obviously PSG, if their front three click, they're going to have a hell of a chance. But again, the problem with them is I don't think they play in a league which is, you know, it's a stroll for them most games. So when they get to the quarterfinals, semi-finals of the Champions League, it's a totally different tempo, a totally different game. And I think that's where they struggle.
And I think when you look at it from a defensive point, and again, you being an ex-centre half, PSG might be great going forward, but defensively, they still leak goals, and they still leak poor goals as well. And that could be got at by better quality teams than what they are facing week in, week out. They don't have someone, they're not going up against a Lukaku type every single week, whereas in the Champions League, they could with Lukaku, Lewandowski, even a Haaland. So that would be interesting. Bayern, if we're looking at it from a Champions League point of view, Bayern are ones for me to beat as well. They're going to be a tough team.
They always are.
They always are. They always are. And I'm going to stick my neck out. And I'm actually going to agree with you, Steve. I think we could have another All English Champions League final. I certainly think City are capable. I think Liverpool are very capable. United, on the other hand, they've got the players, they've got the star man, but they haven't got the coach.
No, I think, I think what's been proven throughout the Premier League over the last 3 or 4 years is that, you know, people will say, well, as long as the coaches have got the money, they can become the best coaches in the world. But I think what's happened with Pep, certainly our manager and Klopp, they improve their players. Players improve as players under them. So I don't think Manchester United, I think they're trying to just buy success instead of working at success. And, you know, there's so many of our players have become better players under Tuchel. And I think that he's proven his weight in gold, you know, with regard to his decision at half time. Changed the whole course of the game. And we looked far far better in the second half. And I'm always gutted when Mason Mount gets taken off. But with regard to that, it was a masterstroke, and it worked beautifully.
Whether he's having a bit of a hangover from Euros, I don't know. I did see him play against St. Petersburg in the Champions League, and he didn't play well. I think that could be said. There was a few players that didn't play well, but I think Mount is getting to that point where he may be playing too many games and he's not had a proper full rest. If it was me, I think it was perfect for him to be taken off against Tottenham because it just wasn't working. That sort of system that was being played with him and Havertz, with Lukaku, against the Spurs side who needed to come at us, needed to compete. It wasn't working. And Kovacic and Jorginho, we've mentioned it, is such a different partnership to what it was when they first arrived. Kovacic against Aston Villa last week and Zenit in the Champions League. My goodness, what a superb performances he produced in the middle of the park. And it's interesting with him and Jorginho now. Kovacic is the man, the engine doing all the work, and Jorginho's the one mopping up, cleaning. Kovacic is doing the dirty work, and Jorginho is the cleaner. He's cleaning the dirty work, and it's that fabric of the midfield partnership, I think, is key. And people talk about, there's not enough goals in Chelsea's midfield. Kante went forward yesterday, and yes, he scored a lucky goal. He was still there at the right place, right time. But you've got players like Mount and Havertz and Ziyech, Hudson-Odoi and Pulisic and Lukaku and Werner. They're the ones that can get you to 15, 20 goals a season.
Yeah.
With the system that Tuchel is playing, especially with Alonso going forward or Reece James or Azpilicueta. I mean, Azpilicueta, my goodness, for someone who's near mid-30s now, playing in that role at the right wing-back, that's put on more years in his game. And we've got to talk about Thiago Silva. He's defying logic at the moment. He's near 37 years old and he's playing arguably the best football of his career.
And it's quite ironic, Keith, because you said that you thought PSG were vulnerable at the back. And they've got rid of... And I think there's something in football, which it used to be in my day, when you hit 30, you're over the hill. But when you've got his class, they probably thought at 35, 36, 35, it's time for him to go and we've got to find a replacement. But what I like about him and Ronaldo is their ambition not to go to America and earn, major bucks, although they're both earning a good wage, but they could probably earn more money going to the MLS than they did here. And but they decided to come here, which is a hard place to come and make an impression. And they've been absolutely brilliant so far, both of them. So if I could bottle that and make my centre halves drink that, he is absolutely brilliant.
You mentioned just earlier about in your day when you was playing that you'd reach a certain age, whether it was 30, 31, 32, and certain people would say, oh, he's lost it. He's lost that yard of pace, or he's lost that sort of knack of getting in the right place at the right time. Oh, because he's reached 30. Did you have any experiences in your time where managers would actually say that to you, or certain players would say that, we need to maybe look elsewhere because of your age or things like that? Did you ever sort of experience something like that? Whereby...
No, I didn't, Keith. I retired at 31, so I didn't really face anyone. But I'm sure people would think, it's amazing how you can make a mistake or you can get caught out, and it's because you're 30 or 31. That happens, a lot of times. I think that it was a bit like Bobby Moore when they decided to leave him out the England team. He had a couple of bad games, um, for England, and he made a couple of really sort of mistakes that he never had made in his life. And all of a sudden, there was this big cry that he was past it. He was too old. And yet, a year later or 2 years later, he was leading, Fulham to an FA Cup final and was absolutely brilliant for them. I think it's a fallacy, and I think that maybe, both these ambassadors of the game and two very dedicated and great professional footballers can strike out for the older players and say, well, actually, you don't have to be 24 or 25. It's because they're assets. They're both assets, both their clubs. And all I'm saying is that if you can get Thiago Silva on the pitch for 25 games, we won't lose many of those per season.
No. And it's interesting, when he first came in, people were a little bit sceptical because of the age and because of the fact, well, there's a reason why PSG are letting him go. Why are we going for him? Yeah. There should be no doubt about Thiago Silva's performances. I mean, even against Aston Villa the other week in the Premier League, the clearance he made when he sort of went on the floor and blocked the shot from, I believe it was Watkins. You'd expect that from a young, vibrant centre-half, not somebody of Thiago Silva's ilk, but he's showing the young defenders how to do it. And we've said it before, someone like Chalobah and Christensen will only benefit by learning through Thiago Silva. It's similar to what happened with John Terry, with Desailly and Frank Leboeuf.
Yeah. Well, I think, if I look at Thiago Silva, and he's 37, and I'm looking at him thinking, dearie me, he's one of the best centre-halves ever to play in this. I don't look at it one of the best centre-halves to play for Chelsea, but I look at him as one of the best centre-halves to play in this country. He is absolutely top-notch. I love the way he comes in front of people and nicks the ball, and then he lays off. He's so intelligent, and the likes of Christensen and Chalobah, they can learn so much for him, and they're both good footballer centre halves, but they might know when to and when not to, because sometimes they, and I just think he's worth his weight in gold to Chelsea Football Club.
Now, one thing that struck me when Thiago Silva scored the opening goal yesterday, and I did actually think of you, Steve, when this occurred. I was thinking, I wonder how he would look at it from a defensive point. You've got a defending corner, and you've got a centre half who, all right, he's not one to score every week from corners, but he's a presence. If you was the coach defending that corner, would you have an attacking midfielder mark him, or would you have more of a defensive-minded person looking to maybe block him, see where he's going, zonally or man mark? Would you have someone like a Dele Alli mark him?
No, I wouldn't. I thought a total mismatch. I really did, and I remember thinking, dearie me, if he's there's a real chance here. But what I find really frustrating, and I know I'm a bit of an old fogey, but what I'm saying is the starting position of some of these centre backs and people picking up from corners, because they've got into this pulling and shoving and twisting and doing what they do, their starting position isn't right. When people peel off the back of people, they're square, and they don't know how far back they are. They don't know where they are. And I think that sometimes Ken Chiletto used to say, football is a simple game complicated by idiots, and he's dead right. You open yourself up, your arm's length, you're touch tight, and you're in a position where you can see both the ball and him. That's how you pick up. And when we're just not doing that, we're getting, not Chelsea, but other teams, they're getting caught square, looking at the ball and no idea what's behind them.
And Silva had that other chance as well that and you just look at it sort of defensively, and you look at it with how Chelsea operate. Someone like Silva, you'd have someone with a bit more steel trying to block him and trying to sort of stop, maybe not sort of foul him, stop him getting towards the ball, rather than, oh, well, I'm covering my space, I'm okay. That's why I find it funny with
No,
man marking and zonally. Zonally's come in, throughout the years, and some managers like it, some managers hate it. But at the end of the day, as you say, it's the basics. If you've got a towering centre half that's running towards you or running towards to meet the flight of the ball, you've got to do better than just stand there and act like you're making a presence.
Well, you shouldn't, as I said, Doki, you shouldn't be in that position. You should always be touch tight. You should always be that close, the length of your arm. You shouldn't allow people to have runs at you. You go, and I have never seen a zone score a goal. Have you?
No. I've seen zones concede goals.
Yeah, and I honestly believe that it's a way out. I think it's a way out for people not picking up. But what's happened? I think everyone's got. It's like a wrestling belt in there for the corner.
Yes.
I would say probably each game you could easily award 3 penalties from corners, with the way people are just wrestling. And I didn't want. I would. When I was playing, I don't think I'd like to have got that close to Joe Jordan where I was wrestling him, to be honest, because that would be very dangerous. But no, you've got to back yourself. When I played at QPR, I had to pick up Mickey Droy, and I still had the principles of being touch tight and not allowing him to get in front of me, not allowing him to get a run on me, and knowing where he is and where the ball is, and that's basics. And I think that's gone out the game.
And then even when you look at the second goal, because I've sort of watched it a few times back, and I was trying to analyse it for my benefit, especially for today's recording. And Kante's not a dribbler, whereby he's going to get past 3 or 4 players. Although he's done it on a rare occasion, but you'd at least, if he has the ball, close him down. I mean, I'm not complaining because we won the game, but I'm looking at it from comparing us to other teams. Now, we faced Arsenal away, we faced Tottenham away, so we are the kings of North London, and we don't even reside in North London. We are the kings of North London. We've played Liverpool at Anfield, and because of the referee's stupidity, we played 45 minutes with 10 men, and we didn't lose. So, comparing us to other teams at this moment in time, we're looking strong. And you look at the teams around us, or you look at the teams that are allegedly, these biased punditries would have you think, would be competitive with us. They're not. And you look at someone like Spurs that I don't think, based on what I've seen recently, then nowhere near top 4 material. Not when you look at someone like Liverpool, United. I've already gave my views on them, and you look at someone like City, Arsenal. They don't need to even to be mentioned. To be honest, they're not. Well, they are not even in the same category as us. But you can only beat what's in front of you. But I have to sort of mention this to you, Steve. I don't know whether you saw it. What must Harry Kane be thinking today? When you look at someone like Lukaku, who we bought in, and people are going to, non-Chelsea fans are going to go, 98 million, that's a lot of money. Look what he's done in the short space of time that he's come in. This is why I think it was important that we got him in, based on he's worked in the Premier League before with 3 different clubs. He knows the league. He knows how competitive it is. It looks like he hasn't left English football at all. You look at his performance compared to Kane, and people are saying Kane's better than Lukaku. Kane looked lost. He looked like he didn't want to be there. Lukaku looked like somebody who wanted to score. And you can see with Lukaku's performances, every time the ball was coming towards him or people would have shots and Lukaku was in space, he was getting the ump. He was getting frustrated because he wanted to score. And he's that sort of striker that we needed, whereby, yes, we won 3-0, but he's pissed off because he hasn't scored.
Yeah. Well, listen, I played with one of the best goal scorers, I think, and that was Clive Allen. And there were times where I thought, if we lost 3-2 and he scored twice, he'd be quite happy. And that's a centre forward's mentality. You want them to be like that. Harry Kane, I think the truth about I think Harry Kane, to me, from what I've seen and what I've heard, is a very upstanding man of his word gentleman. And he's led Spurs unbelievably. He's led the line. I think he is suffering from having an agreement and being totally let down by the powers that be at Tottenham. I think they've stitched him up unbelievably. Now, they might think when he didn't sign, when they kept him at Tottenham, they might think, oh God, we've done great there, job done. But they've got to deal with his mental side. And to me, he's not the Harry Kane. He's coming off, he's coming deeper, he's playing deeper and deeper and deeper. He's playing a different way. And I think they now will look at it, and for the sort of money they could have got for him, maybe with what they've done and how they've scarred him, they've lost a lot of money. But I hope that he's bigger and better than that, because he's very important to England as well, and he comes through. But the hunger between Lukaku and Harry at the weekend was there for all to see. But I think there's probably reasons that we don't know about, which have made Harry Kane very, what's the word I'm looking for? Disenchanted to be where he.
And you look at the mood of the place. I mean, the Chelsea fans were loving it, being at 3 Point Lane. Bearing in mind, we've played there 3 times now in the league and we've won all 3 times. So I believe now we've christened that place 3 Point Lane. The old White Hart Lane was 3 Point Lane to us because the great record we had there. Now I think we've christened that the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium 3 Point Lane. We've done superbly well every game we've played there. I still remember Willian's strike when we first went there under Frank. Last season, it was a great performance as well, which didn't help Tottenham. And yesterday's performance, I mean, even Rudiger getting in on the act at the third goal, and 3-0 didn't flatter us because we could have won that game 6-0, Steve.
Yeah, I think we could have won that game 6-0. But it concerns me a little bit. I think that there are now 3 leagues within our league, and I think that's becoming more and more evident now, because I think the top 4 have strengthened and they've got great squads. And although Leicester have a go each year, they're beginning to be a little bit found out. It's not as easy for them. You've got Tottenham in a mess. You've got Arsenal in a mess. And it's basically because, and I hate to say this, but it's true, they haven't invested the types of money that we've invested. Yes, they've gone out and bought players, but they haven't bought players that, Ben White at £50 million, he's going to be a good footballer, don't get me wrong. And Arsenal need a centre back. But if you look at the players around him, there's 16.5, 12.5 million. They're what I call, fill-in signings to try and change it, but they look way off. So I think you've got the 4, you've got the then battle for the other 2 European places, and that's between West Ham. For instance, a prime example, Antonio suspended. They haven't really got a centre forward within their squad that can replace him. Now that, to me, shows an awful lack of ambition for West Ham, because that's crying out to sign a centre forward that can either play up with Antonio now and again, or lead the line himself when Antonio's injured. He often is, and obviously he was sent off and he got suspended. So, they paid the price. The lack of investment at the top level is now beginning to show even more.
Yeah, other supporters, especially Spurs supporters, who I've heard from, over the weekend and even before the game, will moan, "Oh, well, it's Russian blood money, blah blah blah. You lot sort of overspend, blah blah blah." Spurs have had money over the last 10, 15 years. You can't tell me Spurs have not spent so much £millions on players. They had the Bale money, and they spent it on not great. Whereas other teams, they would go out, and this is where I think the recruitment and scouting is important. It depends on how good it is. Yes, every signing's not going to be great, and we've had some bad signings. You know, we discussed it on a previous episode, Steve. We've made some shoddy signings, but most of our signings have been good. Azpilicueta, arguably the best 7 million we have spent in a long, long time. He's still there.
Yeah.
Thiago Silva, 35, free transfer. Lukaku, 97 million, our most expensive signing. But look what he's produced. And I think, as you say, I do agree. I think there is probably 3 mini leagues in one league, and I'm hopeful, more than extremely confident. I am more hopeful than confident we can win the league. But there's just a little bit of me that thinks we could potentially actually retain the European Cup.
Yeah, well, if I had to put my money and being not with my blue shirt on, I'd say the most impressive team over the period of time so far this season has been Chelsea. And if you listen to a lot of pundits on the on TalkSport on the radio, they're all saying that the team that finishes above Chelsea will win the league.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are saying there won't be anyone above Chelsea. They will win the league. Now, a lot of that is down to there's a certain amount of luck. You need to be injuries at the right time. But when you look at our club and the strength in depth, you know, it's like we could field a team at Aston Villa in the League Cup and not play one of the first team that played on Saturday and still put a very, very good side out.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Villa because I want to switch gears to that. We're going to sort of preview the Carabao, I'll still call it League Cup. I still remember when it was called the Coca-Cola Cup back in the day. I still remember that. But again, in my opinion, and I've even said this yesterday to a couple of Chelsea supporters, if it was me, the only person that I would keep in that team that played on Sunday would be Kepa. Everyone else, night off.
Yeah.
We've got the squad depth. We've got enough quality to come in and do a job against Aston Villa. Aston Villa, we mentioned it before coming on the show. It's a sort of competition they need to win because they're not going to get into Europe probably within the top 6. They're not going to win the league. This is an opportunity for them to win a trophy. But for us, it's good for Tuchel to look at other players, look at rotation, keep players fresh. Bearing in mind, the next 2 games we've got after that are Man City on the Saturday and Juventus in the Champions League.
Yeah.
So people like Thiago Silva, give him the night off. Lukaku, give him the night. Maybe have Lukaku on the bench, but at least don't start him. But people like Mount, give him the 9 off. Put Hakim Ziyech in. Put Hudson-Odoi in. See how they get on.
Yeah. Put Werner in.
Loftus-Cheek, Werner, Barkley.
Yeah.
Give them a game.
Yeah.
And see how they get on.
I think he will do that. I think he will do that. I think his priority are the 2 games coming up because I would imagine our priority is to win the Premier League and the Champions League. So what he's got an ideal opportunity to get the players a little bit more match fit up to the standard as because I think Aston Villa will field a full side first team side.
If I was them, I would. Bearing in mind when they played against us, they played quite well the other week.
Not a bad side, are they?
That 3-0, would I say it was flattering? They didn't deserve to lose 3-0, but we deserved to win 3-0, if that makes sense. I thought they played quite well. They have got some decent players, but I'm just looking at the squad, Steve, just sort of quickly, and these are the sort of players who I'm expecting to play. Maybe not 90 minutes, but at least a large portion of the game. You've got players like Trevor Chalobah, Ben Chilwell. I'd expect Reece James to play, to be fair, considering he was out the weekend. Maling Sarr, who was on loan at Porto last season. could probably maybe have Kante start, albeit he was on the bench on Sunday. Loftus-Cheek, Saul, Ross Barkley, Hudson-Odoi, Timo Werner, Ziyech. These players, put them in. See what they can do. And maybe even put a couple of the youngsters maybe have on the bench and see how they get on. Again, it's a type of competition for us this season. Yeah, I want to win it, but we've got 2 huge games coming up in City and Juventus, and I don't want to lose against them. Bearing in mind, City, I think, are there for the taking, and Juve, they're in the bottom 3 at the moment in Serie A. So that tells you all you need to know about where, at the moment, Juventus are at this moment. So where we are compared to them, we need to be fresh for them. For that game.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think it's also. Do you remember Liverpool played their under 20? Was it under 23 one team? Didn't they in the and he even got to the stage where Klopp didn't manage the team. The guy who at Blackpool managed the team. You know, when they went away on the World Club Championship or something. You know, but I just think this is a great opportunity, as I said, to get the boys who haven't been involved, get them a game against a very, very good side. And as I said, I think our Tuchel's 2 priorities will be the Premier League and the Champions League. And those 2 games coming up, as you say, are massive. And I'd like Thiago Silva and I'd like Kante. I'd like to have all those players fit for those 2 games, because Man City, I think we could be. I never ever dreamt that Man City would play at home and only have 1 shot on target in 90 minutes, and that was against Southampton. Now things aren't quite 100% there at the moment. We're playing them at a good time.
I agree. I agree, especially at our place as well, where the atmosphere is going to be good. Bearing in mind where we are in the league table at the moment, and this would put down a marker. Bearing in mind we've already played Arsenal, Liverpool, Tottenham, Zenit, Champions League. We've had a bit of a tough month for September. We beat Man City. I'm just going to look over the fixtures for October, Steve, and it seems a little bit better, although it's not easy, but it's a little bit better than what we've had. We've got Southampton on the 2nd, Brentford on the 16th, Malmo in the Champions League, then we've got Norwich and Newcastle, and that's October.
Yeah. Well, that you know, if we get over these 2 games, if we can get a win against Man City and a win against Barcelona, Juventus, that makes our job a lot easier to keep on track for the two big ones.
So it'll be interesting what happens. Just want to sort of brief mention the Predictor League for those that actually I did get an email from somebody to say who's winning it at the moment, because we haven't had any sort of confirmation or any updates or anything. It took me a while because I was a little bit late on sorting out who was winning what and how many points people had. I finally sorted out over the weekend, and we have 3 people joint top at the moment. And this was before the Spurs game. So the 3 people that are joint top, they are Steve Wicks, John Dempsey, and
a third centre half, please. And a third centre back.
No, it is an individual by the name of Jake Cooper.
Right.
So he's a Chelsea supporter called Jake Cooper. He is in a 3-way tie for first place at the moment, and all the others are sort of partly back, maybe 4 or 5 points behind at the moment. So interesting. What I would like to do, Steve, just as we sort of keep on with the Predictor League, could you give me your prediction for the Chelsea Villa game?
Not knowing the team, that's quite hard. So I'm going to have a little go. I'm going to say they're going to put the second team out and they're going to win 2-1.
Lovely. Well, the table will be up this week. It will have the results of the Spurs as well. It will also have hopefully the results for Aston Villa. So I will put the table up later this week for your convenience. We will hopefully have a show next week as well to review the Villa and Man City games as well. So if you want to find us on YouTube, find us on the Blue Day podcast. We've got great videos of myself at Chelsea with some good videos, and we've got some highlights. We've got interviews as well. So find us on YouTube. Find us on facebook.com/the Blue Day podcast for all the news, all information. But we just want to sort of do a side note of, because this was something we was going to mention last week. Now, there's two reasons why we didn't have a show last week, and I'll mention one of them. The other one, Steve was unable to do it for personal reasons, but the reason why I couldn't do a show last week was to do with work commitments, but also I attended a PFA event, Steve, last week, and it was something that was in my diary for some time, and I kept it quiet as I didn't want too many people to know about it. But it was at the Grosvenor Hotel near Park Lane, and it was an event organised by PT Events and organised by the PFA. It was 3 Chelsea greats, Steve, and it was Gianfranco Zola, Roberto Di Matteo. It was supposed to be Dennis Wise, but he was in Italy for reasons because he's the chief executive of the Italian side Como. So they had a game on Friday that he had to attend. So they had Torre Andre Flo, not a bad substitute to have. He was there, and they were talking about some great Chelsea stories, and it was an event, as a Chelsea fan, superb. I was sitting with the Chelsea pitch owners, the chairman, Chris Isett, who's been on the show before, and 3 other board members. It was a great day. It was a really good day to listen to them, spend time with them, and I was part of the silent auction. They did have a silent auction there with a couple of Chelsea bits, and there was another sort of couple of raffles. Didn't win anything. I did try. There was a couple of £100 that I was a little bit out of, but it was great. And I just want to sort of pretty much plug the PFA because they do some good events as well. They've got one with Gareth Southgate coming up at the end of this year. So if you're interested, go have a look on the PFA. I'm not getting paid for this by the PFA, by the way, but I just want to sort of comment how pleased I was with how the evening went, and for a Chelsea fan to listen to Zola and Di Matteo speak, bearing in mind Di Matteo won the Champions League with us. I was very fortunate to be there.
Yeah, it sounds a great night, Keith.
It was especially great. And I want to also sort of now discuss, obviously the news broke yesterday as the news that the great Jimmy Greaves passed away. Heard the news Sunday morning, and shock wasn't sort of the first thing that came to me when I heard the news. It was just more sadness, and it was a case where I know that Jimmy Greaves has been unwell for some time, but my God, what a character, and what a fantastic striker he was. Obviously, well before my time. But the highlights that you see and the goals that he would score, he'd score all types of goals. And even we'll talk about it with yourself, Steve, in a minute, but even with Saints and Greavesy, a show that ran on ITV in the mid-80s to early 90s. It was, again, before my time, but every person I speak to loved Saints and Greavesy. I have not seen any football fan that said, "Oh, that was a rubbish show." It was superb. And again, I feel sad for the family and friends of the great Jimmy Greaves because he was such a character. And again, another character's gone from the game. And so Steve, just want to sort of wrap the sort of episode up just by sort of getting your memories of Jimmy Greaves. Because again, you was sort of coming through the ranks while he was sort of playing, and then he was sort of coming at the end of his career, but you was sort of in that sort of same bracket in the 70s as a sort of a Chelsea player coming through. So what are your memories of the great Jimmy Greaves growing up as a kid and seeing him play?
Well, I think Jimmy's record speaks for itself. There's not one striker that has ever been that has scored the amount of goals and game ratio. It's like his England. I think I'm right in saying he played 7 times, or 54 times for England, scored 44 goals. If he'd have played the amount of games that Rooney had played, it worked out he'd get 95. His goal ratio was something like 434 in 516 games or something. It was unbelievable. I never played against Jimmy. My dad used to think he was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I remember as a kid watching the football and seeing him score the most unbelievable goals. He glided across the pitch in pitches that were, well, just mud heaps, really. And my God, he could finish. And a couple of things I'll always remember. Terry Venables was very close to Jimmy. And he used to say to Clive Allen over and over and over again, when you get through, do me a favour, don't blast it, pass it. Pass it into the net. And he gave Clive a DVD to watch Jimmy Greaves and look at how many times he got through, dropped his shoulder, went through, and instead of hammer it, just passed the ball into the net. He was the best finisher you'll ever see. A lovely man. I had the honour of meeting him 2 or 3 times. An extremely funny man, fantastic sense of humour. And Ken Chiletto told the best story I think I've ever heard, and I couldn't stop laughing. He was saying that Jimmy was always the practical joke man in the squad. And Ken was on the train, and Jimmy used to go get off at Earl's Court. So, packed train. So as he gets to go off at Earl's Court and Ken's staying on the train, he goes up to Ken, gives him a kiss, smack on the lips, and says, "See you, darling, I'll see you tomorrow." And left Ken on the train. As the doors closed, Ken was like, everyone was looking at him. He was at, and that was Jimmy Greaves. Jimmy Greaves had a wicked sense of humour, and a lovely man. You know, he pioneered ex-footballers going onto TV. It was very important, that show, because it was the first of its kind, the first that an ex-footballer, 2 footballers were on TV talking about football. And obviously there was Jimmy Hill, but it was different. But he was a lovely man, very, very humble, very humble. And also, I don't think we should ever forget, and Bobby Moore told me this. He said in the England squad, when we won the World Cup in 1966, we had 5 world-class players. No, who was it? No, who was it? No, it was Alan Ball. Alan Ball said to me, we had 5 world-class players. And he said, that's Gordon Banks, Bobby Moore, Ray Wilson, and Bobby Charlton. I said, that's 4. He said, yes, the other world-class player didn't play that day. That was Jimmy Greaves. And I think that says everyone respected him for what he was and knew what sort of player he was. And my love and thoughts are with Jimmy's family and his friends. And he will be a great loss to everyone and a great loss to the football world, that's for sure.
Definitely. I've just got up these goal scoring records, as we just mentioned, obviously the amount of goals he scored. And you mentioned with England, he scored 44 goals in 57 appearances. I mean,
unbelievable.
Even that in itself is superb. Chelsea, between 1957 to 1961, he scored 124 goals in 157 appearances. Milan, he scored 9 goals in 12 appearances. Spurs, obviously, when he was there the longest and he was more probably revered at White Hart Lane, 220 goals in 321 appearances. And even at West Ham for one season, 13 goals in 38 appearances. Even that's quite impressive compared to especially today's standards. But as you said, my thoughts and prayers are with the family and friends of Jimmy Greaves. And the only sort of time I met him was at a Q&A event in Dartford many, many years ago. I went with my brother, who's a Tottenham fan, and we sat probably 4 to 5 rows from the front, and I was in awe of the guy because his stories were so entertaining and they were funny.
Oh.
And somebody sort of heckled in the crowd about, why are you not on Chelsea TV? You'd be great back on Chelsea TV. And he just said, Chelsea don't want me, but I know other people that do, and that's people here. And it just, things like that was just sort of superb, and it was just sort of listening to
he was
some great stories of him, and it's obviously the tribute that came out with White Hart Lane yesterday with the minutes of applause. I'm hoping that Chelsea can do their own little tribute as well for the man, considering he did start his career with Chelsea. And my goodness, again, as we said, we talked about Terry Venables as being a character. We've talked about other people, Rodney Marsh as well. As we took, you look at sort of characters in the game. Jimmy Greaves was just complete, one of a kind.
Yeah, just a one-off, and and I heard his interview he was asked a question, how did you feel about not playing in the 1966 World Cup? I don't know if you heard that, but the way he responded and the humble way he dealt with it was absolutely fantastic, and that just typified the man. Mm-hmm. And I think when you look at players of that era, they always had time for fans. And Jimmy would stop, he'd talk, because he was one of those fans. He never forgot his where he came from.
Yeah, and as you say, humble guy, and what a lovely fella, and he will be missed. So I don't think there's much more we can sort of add to that, Steve, is there? I mean, hopefully, as you say, hopefully there'll be a special tribute by Chelsea for him. And
yeah, well, I hope we talk about Tottenham, where you look at his main part of his career was at Tottenham. I really think he's great enough for them to sort of say, we're going to put a statue up to remember Jimmy Greaves forever. Because they don't, if you spoke to people of his time, who's your favourite player? I would imagine 75% of Tottenham fans would have said Jimmy Greaves. And that's the impression he made. And it would be nice if they did a little something to honour him, because I think he was a little bit let down with Whitehall. I think he should have got his OBE and MBE and even a Sir Jimmy. Because there's lots of people that are riding bikes and doing things that are getting knighthoods. I look at him as one of our all-time greats, and how Bobby Moore hasn't had I don't know how they call it, but just been, sort of honoured more. I don't know. I find it really. So I hope certain things are done that even with his record, maybe a little something at Wembley, or maybe we should put. There's all those photos of players. Let's make room for Jimmy Greaves. Let's put Jimmy Greaves up there because he was a Chelsea boy. He didn't want to leave Chelsea. Chelsea sold him. He didn't want to go. And he's one of his goal records sits there with the best.
I just want to end the show, Steve, with another plug. If you have BT Sport, Chelsea supporters, or if you can find it on other platforms, there's a great documentary that BT Sport did called Greavesy. I did watch it again last night. I had to, and it's a great documentary about the man. So I do urge people, if you haven't watched it, or if you have watched it, watch it again. It's great, sort of seeing him through the highlights and looking at different matches and just watching what he did in his life. But I just want to end, Steve, with this quote that Jimmy Greaves made about Chelsea that I would like to share with you and obviously share with the supporters, and then we'll wrap this up. Is that good for you, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. Jimmy Greaves' quote: "It's probably the greatest name in the world, Chelsea. You think about it, it conjures up the best part of the biggest city in the world, Chelsea. It's magical." Stay safe, folks, and carefree.
Running ball sideways. Greaves! Oh, and a hat-trick for Greaves in his last appearance.
It's Greaves made it 4-1. And the home team.
Lundstone back to Greaves, who's hanging back very well. It's a chance for a Greaves shot.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.